Every month, gameranx pulls together some of the weirdest stuff that happened in the gaming world. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, the top 10 weird gaming stories from May 2018. Number 10, a modder went into the Dark Souls remastered files and found some interesting things, specifically a very early prototype of the Upper Cathedral Ward map from Bloodborne. Now keep in mind, Dark Souls preceded Bloodborne by 4 years, a long time, and these are files that were actually in the original Dark Souls. Not just input in Dark Souls Remastered or anything like that. In fact, it's believed that the map itself was used specifically in the testing phase of Dark Souls, so it may have even been intended to be included in the original Dark Souls game. Now, the map that ended up in Bloodborne obviously wasn't exactly the same. Things changed over the years, but the modder extracted the files and put them into Grand Theft Auto V so he could take a tour around the area as Trevor. It's particularly weird when he starts driving around it in a car, because it's a Bloodborne map. But hell, why not? It's weird that it's that old anyway. Number 9, the UK's Culture Secretary, Minister Matt Hancock, said that addictive online shooter games such as Fortnite have a quote-unquote damaging impact on the lives of children. We've certainly never heard anything like this before in the gaming world. No, actually, scratch that, we have. We've heard it over and over. What's weird is that study after study seems to show these folks to be wrong, and that yes, there are things that could be monitored by parents in video games, but about 99% of the time, people like this have no idea exactly what those could be. Now, the main thing that he focused on was the addictive nature of the game, which, you know, could very well be addressed by talking about loot boxes and stemming the incentive to ensnare players in addictive mechanics that frankly aren't actually part of the main game. But no, it's just Fortnite is bad. If you're interested, he's a member of the Tory party, which is the equivalent of the Republicans there. Just for reference purposes, in case you happen to live in the UK and disagree with a wide-ranging and frankly stupid view of video games, you know who to petition about it. Yeah, there's stuff that could be addressed. No, Fortnite is not the stuff that could be addressed. It's mechanics, specific mechanics, and it's weird that nobody realizes this. Number 8, a speedrunner beat Super Metroid with a controller that he covered in Vaseline. He did this to celebrate the fact his Twitch channel hit 1,000 subscribers, which is always a momentous occasion. The first 10 subscribers are harder than the first 100, the first 100 harder than the first 1,000, and in truth 1,000 is where you start really getting taken seriously. So it makes sense to congratulate Volrat. Volrat also did a 24-hour stream, and the Super Metroid Vaseline controller challenge was part of that. It's gross as hell. I don't know why anyone at all would do that. It's just, yuck. It seems like touching it would be the worst possible thing. In fact, we went ahead and tried it here in the gameranx offices. Oh, don't do this. Just don't. Touching it is so bad, and it's not impossible to play, but it's terrible. Nothing good can come of it. Don't do it. And by that, I mean do it. Send us pictures. Send us video. Number 7, Valve has decided that instead of attempting to get law enforcement involved or some high-tech security firm, they've come up with an interesting way of fixing the hacking on Steam by paying anyone who can hack Steam to hack Steam. HackerOne is a company that runs hacking bounties, and Valve put one up, which can easily start bringing you in some serious money if you're actually good at hacking Steam. Minor security flaws can net you up to $200. Medium issues can bring you $250 to $1,000. And if somebody found a very dangerous security flaw in the Steam client, there's actually no cap on the maximum payout for that. It's an interesting acknowledgement of how things kind of actually work. Security firms often are a little more ethical than individuals, and individuals are often a little more creative, let's say, as far as hacking goes. It's weird that a big company like Valve got that. Number 7, somebody hacked Thanos into Grand Theft Auto V, and it's amazing. Now, the mod itself isn't completely out yet. You can get a work-in-progress version of it, though, by pledging to the modder on Patreon for $10. And if you look at this mod, it's absolutely insane. It looks like a Thanos game, if that makes any sense. All of Thanos' powers are on display. You can select from them. They aren't crappy at all. For instance, like portals work basically how portals work in Portal. This modder is a prolific modder as well. You can get access to their mods for $2 on Patreon and access to their in-development mods for 10. Obviously, once you have the mod, you don't have to keep pledging, but it seems like they work ongoing. Their Patreon is patreon.com/JulioNIB. That's Julio with a J. And frankly, their mods are pretty cool. I think the Thanos one might be the coolest though, and I look forward to seeing all the stuff that people record with it. Number 5, Cliff Bleszinski, or Cliffy B as some know him, tossed a bunch of game ideas out on Twitter for people to try using because he wants to take a little break from the game industry. I mean, Cliffy B got pretty famous, and in some ways it may have actually hindered his various recent projects, and he's decided to wind down Voskey Studios. As such, he ended up putting a bunch of game ideas onto Twitter, including the concept art, the ideas behind the games, and there were some pretty cool ones I kind of wish they were focusing on instead of what they've ended up focusing on, although I get why they did Lawbreakers, for instance, but for instance, Donuts, the goofy looking Mario Kart on water with animals that were colorful and intended to fight off seasonal affective disorder, as well as a mech game where these big dog mechs team fight matches, and a Panzer Dragoon looking game, which he said was inspired by Scalebound, as well as Lair. I mean, don't make any of these games for yourself. Technically, it's still his intellectual property, but it was interesting to see behind the curtain, so to speak. Number 4, you know that kid that was rescued by the guy who climbed up the building? You know how everybody was like, where on earth is this kid's parents? Like, why is he hanging over the balcony? How did this happen in the first place? Well, as it turns out, the kid lived with his dad, and his dad was out catching Pokemon. The dad left the kid in their apartment to go out shopping, but the shopping ended up keeping him out longer than expected, meaning he decided to play Pokemon Go on the street. The child's father also left a window open, which allowed the child to escape, hanging over the balcony, which after a brief investigation was all figured out. The father was actually arrested and faces 2 years in prison. No word on exactly what would happen to the child, but I have to imagine it's safer than dangling over a balcony, whatever it is. To borrow a terrible failed joke from Hillary Clinton, who should have never tried to make jokes at all, the father really should have Pokemon gone home and watched his kids. But even my dry delivery was a better version of it, and I barely tried. Number 3, EA has decided that despite Belgium and the Netherlands ruling that loot boxes are gambling, effectively creating regulation around it and setting an example for other countries that they're just gonna go ahead and do loot boxes anyway. Oh well, says EA, Belgium and the Netherlands aren't really huge markets anyhow. It's fine, we'll do loot boxes elsewhere, whatever. Apparently not realizing that if some countries outlaw something and it gets press, which it has gotten quite significant press, that it's more likely that regulation will get passed here in the United States, where it is a big market and it does actually matter. In fact, it'll probably continue to matter in other markets that play FIFA, which is basically every market, and this kind of activity, which is essentially attempting to taunt fate, usually ends up speeding up regulation, which, let's be frank, nobody really wants regulation, but if it's clear that that's the only thing that's going to stop you from doing something like this, you know, including gambling mechanics that are addictive, both to children and people with certain mental health conditions, it's probably gonna be what does it. So, I mean, good luck with that, EA. Keep trying to make it a bigger and bigger problem. And, you know, bring in the lawmen to gaming more. Thanks. Number 2, we actually talked about this elsewhere, but we figured it's worth it to bring it up. A 13-year-old kid became the youngest professional player in Fortnite. Now, he doesn't get paid a salary or anything like that, but any prize money that the team that signed him up wins, he will get a share of. And what's fairly shocking is that the team didn't even realize he was 13 when they wanted to sign him up. They thought his skill was probably something that wouldn't be present in a 13-year-old kid, and apparently he's got a deep voice, so they were basically shocked to find him. And finally, this is kind of weird, kind of cool, but an atlas of virtual cities that exist in video games and only in video games was released. It pretty much works exactly like a regular atlas. Has information, has architecture, has maps, and kind of chronicles a bunch of virtual cities, 40 of them to be specific, and it spans about 40 years of gaming. It has detailed entries on Yakuza's Kamurocho, Silent Hill, Fallout's New Vegas, And it's generally a pretty damn cool book. Just from the look of it, I'm probably going to pick up a copy myself. It exists in hardback, so that's obviously extra cool if you're a book person. And you should check it out if you're kind of into sort of lore / video game history. That's all the weird / cool stuff we've seen this month. Did you see anything over the course of May that you thought was particularly interesting and weird? Leave us a comment, even if it happens to be one of the ones we brought up. Discussion is always welcome. If you enjoyed this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now would be a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time, right here on gameranx.